Yeah, so we knew that heat pumps were something that we were interested in. We we had replaced the original heating system when we moved into the house in 2008, so 15 years ago, more or less, from the time the project started. But so we'd switched from oil to gas at that time. Um, but the gas system worked fine, but it wasn't particularly efficient. And we had lots of large old radiators around the house that were taking up a lot of floor space. So we were definitely, and we didn't have any air conditioning capability at all. So we were kind of on our on our own there when it got hot. So modernizing the system was definitely something we were interested in doing, but we really didn't have much of an idea. I mean, of what the options were. We obviously we heard a lot about heat pumps. Our town had a kind of an incentive with a contractor. A year or two earlier, and so we looked into it at the time, but you know, it's just such a it's such a big step, replacing your entire replacing the entire system, and just understanding everything that entails. So Tom and his team were really helpful in walking us through that process. They worked with a heating and cooling vendor that was experienced and well versed in the area, and really got us all the information we needed to to feel comfortable making the decision. And I think we're both really happy with the way it's worked out.
Yeah, it's nice not to be cold in the winter and not to be hot in the summer.
Yes, yes. HVAC. Yeah. How would you say, I guess, from the, now we did that transition, right? As this is, this upgrade is in the scope of a bigger renovation. I'm gonna just swirl around and show the kitchen, all these nice cabinets, a nice bump out window there, and a mudroom over here. So, whoops, that's definitely gonna hit the editing room floor. And we opened up the kitchen to the dining room as well.
Right.
Nice and open. So I guess if you could say, like, now all these decisions were in the context of a bigger renovation. So maybe you could speak to that. Is that there were multiple, right, things going on, managing budget, managing the system, managing the time of the year. There was kind of a lot of things went into this. How is it gonna, you stayed in the house while all this was going on.
We did.
Right?
It
So
worked.
maybe you could speak to sort of like, okay, from the time you got comfortable making that decision, and then say, all right, now, how was it, how did it, right? And the way it happened was, never happens without some hiccups, right? Or some, right, but indigestion, but maybe just speak a little bit to that. As if you were surprised by how well it went, or if you were, no, it was just seemed to be planned out and planned out. If there's anything that wasn't perfect, but still in some way, shape, or form, it eventually got handled. And as just speak to the how you went from making a decision to now I got the outcome. And so what was that experience like?
Well, I mean, we were glad to hear that we could stay in the house. You had some very creative ideas. Tom gave us some great ideas for how to stay in the house, how to set up a temporary kitchen in the living room. And the cats really liked it because there was a lot of, we were all in the living room together, so they liked that. And it wasn't as bad as we thought it might be. I mean, Sam was the one who was doing most of the cooking on the little induction plate that we had. And it worked okay. I mean, I guess we had one issue where the pipes froze right around Thanksgiving. Nothing you can predict. And we had to move out for a little while that got fixed, right? What happened exactly? It was right before Thanksgiving.
It was actually, it was a month later. It was actually as we were about to leave for Wisconsin.
Okay, for Christmas.
For Christmas, and that morning, there had been a cold snap, and with the project being, at the stage it was, not all the surfaces were insulated, basically.
Right.
So yeah, the pipes did freeze up, but actually, the timing worked out okay because we were leaving.
We were away.
Just, shut off the water basically in the basement, and by the time we were back, it had
that was
resolved itself.
Yeah, I'm actually, when we moved out, it was when you were doing the insulation, when you were insulating the house, and obviously, so that was the only time actually, right, that we had to move out, was just during that insulation period. That was like a week.
We moved out at the beginning, if you recall, while the heating work was being done.
Oh, right, yes. Yeah.
But yeah, those were, they were pretty brief, the times when we did need to move out, and everything was communicated clearly, and things went according to plan, so we were able to move back in, on schedule.
Yeah, I mean, overall, the entire job, there was always very good communication, and when something came up, we would always learn about it with time to make adjustments. I mean, obviously there's always going to be something coming up, but certainly comparatively, if we when you hear stories from your friends about, we had to stay in a hotel for another 6 months because they weren't finished with the project, or things like that, certainly,
Nothing like that.
No, HTR was very much on top of things, and, there was never a time when they just vanished, and, while we were waiting for the rest of the project to be finished.
So one other kind of hiccup that we ran into with the project was with the town and getting the permit, right? So, because we were technically doing an addition, even though it wasn't much of an addition, the mudroom was, it was new construction. It was an add-on to the house, so we needed to get approval for that, and that ended up, through no fault of HTR's, ended up, taking several months.
Yeah, we had to go through. There was a non-conforming situation that we were unaware of that kicked our application into the special permit category, which was just an administrative wait, basically.
Yeah.
But we had already started planning the project that we didn't know that till we applied. That's when we found it out.
Right. So this is a good example. So, HDR was able to, come up with a plan to basically, complete the kitchen renovation part of the work. So everything except for the addition itself, and so we were able to use the kitchen several months before the project itself completed. So that was big.
Yeah, that was really nice.
We were very relieved to get out, as well as the temporary kitchen worked. We were very relieved to get out of it.
Well, that's good. I think that those temporary kitchens, and I kind of like setting up projects in a way that that the guys who are trying to work aren't doing it in somebody's living room, and the more dust barriers and ways we can separate the work area from the living area, it allows us to not have the burden of working and keeping somebody's living room clean while we're doing stuff versus just make sure dust doesn't go on that side of the door, and we're good.
Yep.
And I think that I think customers have found to appreciate that. It's so much more aggravation. Forget the cost, which it costs money to move, but it also costs how much of my stuff do I take with me?
Right.
And then I know I'm going to have to come back and get stuff. Where do I store it? Right. So if I do need a jacket or a suit that I didn't bring with me, where do I go get it?
Yeah.
And so those things I think are.
I mean, for us, it was dealing with the project itself. I think, and all the decisions that involves was plenty of a challenge for us without having to worry about on top of that moving.
Yeah.
All right. So that's good. So just from a lifestyle standpoint, just to minimize the disruption is the hope. It's why we do that.
Yeah.
And it opens the door for a lot of people who would otherwise just can't get comfortable
Yeah.
pulling a trigger on that, saying, "What, you're going to start in 2 weeks?" And I have this huge daunting thing, and they never do the project because they just can't get over the hump of dealing with all that stuff.
Oh, interesting.
It's a bigger project than designing it and spending the money to fund it and all the rest. It just is like, oh my God, it's
Yeah.
it's clearing my whole basement out. That's going to take a year, not a weekend, right? So.
Yeah.
So I mean, the more we can work around people's needs, we try to do that, is to customize the solutions to match what customers need.
Sure.
And so I appreciate you speaking to some of that stuff.
Yeah. No, we were very appreciative. Tom and the HDR team were, as I mentioned, very communicative. Also, they really worked through the project from the very beginning, planning stages, and just kind of adjusting our expectations because they are very familiar with anything that the cost and the pros and cons of all the different options that we had, and so they have a realistic sense of what would work and what wouldn't work for us as particular clients, not just in a generic way. So we thought that was really helpful, and so they kind of shepherded us through the project from beginning to end. We never felt abandoned. Yeah.
Yep, and they had really good advice, I think, on a number of points, like the appliances.
Right.
This was still during the pandemic and
the
supply chain disruptions and all of that. So they counseled us to get the orders in quickly, and we did. And
right, very early.
Yep, and so no issues with waiting for a refrigerator or a washer or dryer.
Yeah,
that was good.
That was very helpful.
We had a good recommendation on the cabinets. Tom showed you a picture of them earlier, but we're very happy with how those came out.
They came out great. Yeah.
Yeah, looks great.
And making all those choices is paralyzing, so it's very nice to have somebody who has some experience to, lead you in the right directions.
So that sort of brings up like that materials coordination worksheet that we use, and I find that at some point people realize that they have a whole long list of decisions to make and selections to make. And that materials coordination worksheet, that's our sort of base tool. And I think sometimes people need more than that, right? Sometimes designers get involved. Sometimes if they have a particular design sensibility, they'll bring in somebody more, specialized in that area. But just as a generic template for guiding a customer to understand what they need to know, pick what they need to pick, work with vendors who are reliable. That's kind of what you were, right?
Yep.
Speaking to there, that it's, kind of worked as a reliable tool that was a client-facing tool.
Yeah, I would say it helped us to understand, what's actually involved in doing a project like this, because we had never embarked on anything like this before. I mean, we had our upstairs bathroom redone a number of years ago. That was much smaller scale.
Yeah.
I think that worksheet was really helpful in terms of helping us to understand everything that goes into a project like this, and providing us with the right amount of detail without being overwhelming, too much into the weeds. Definitely.
Yeah, and just breaking it out into different areas. I mean, as a librarian, I appreciate any kind of organization. It's nice to just know, 1, 2, 3, have a list. So it's not just this amorphous thing that suddenly it's like, oh wait, what about the tile? Which I know people have had happen to them. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.